Right now, it is time for a Chat with Pat.
Yeah, so excited today. We have with us Monsignor Jason Gray. He is a priest of the Catholic Diocese of Peoria and the executive director of the Fulton Sheen Foundation. And he wrote an article in First Things called Blessed Fulton Sheen, a Modern Evangelist for Christ. Welcome, Monsignor. How are you today?
Oh, I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Oh, this was great. And I love the way you kind of start this article out. So this is kind of how I want to start the interview out. You bring up the wonderful point, right, that the reason we honor a blessed is because of heroic virtue. And since Fulton Sheen was such a media star, sometimes people wonder about this whole, did he have the virtue of humility? Was he really all that virtuous? So can you kind of fill us in on that?
Sir, the way I began was by pointing out all sorts of things about his life, but I say these are not the reasons that we beatify or canonize someone. So
exactly.
Not because they were good on the air, not because they were famous, not because he won an Emmy, not because he had millions of people who would follow his radio or television programs. And I think sometimes because he was so successful, people might assume, like happens so often with successful people, that they have a tendency to pride. And
Right.
I think there was probably some temptation there. But
Sure.
Sheen's life, I think, was really characterized by humility. That he was never too big to talk to just ordinary people. It could relate to the common man and was not just simply associated with the rich and the powerful.
And don't you think that authenticity came through in the show, and that's why he was so popular on TV?
Yeah, he was certainly extremely educated, but I don't think it was his degree that made him successful on the show. Because I don't know about you, I've listened to a lot of professors thrown on in classrooms, and they don't necessarily automatically have relatability. But
Yes.
Sheen was someone who didn't just simply know about Christ, meaning like he'd studied him in a book.
Right.
He knew Christ in a personal way. And so his authenticity, I think, came from a personal relationship with Jesus, and that came from hours and hours of prayer before the Blessed Sacrament, which was such a part of his day.
Wow. Yeah. Wasn't that amazing? How many? You even kind of calculated the hours, right? That he probably set
I
for
did.
them. How many?
Yeah. So his commitment began when he was ordained a priest in 1919, and then he died in 1979. And so when you add all of that up over 60 years, it was a commitment to make an uninterrupted Eucharistic holy hour every day. So if you add that up, it gets to over 21,000 holy hours.
Wow.
So it was, and anyone can make a holy hour, and it's wonderful as a legacy to honor Sheen to do that. And we should encourage people to go in and pray before the Blessed Sacrament, and that's always valuable.
Yes.
The thing that was heroic about Sheen is that he would do that for an hour every day, which is great, but to do it consistently. That's one of the marks of heroism for a virtue of any blessed or any saint, is that they would do something and do it consistently and do it without fail.
Yeah, that is amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh gosh. So you also mentioned his humor. I think part of his ability to connect with people was his humor. How did he? You say he wrote a whole chapter on that in his autobiography. I think it was Treasure in Clay.
Treasure in Clay.
Tell us a little bit about his approach with humor.
So humor is one of these things that he realized it was a very valuable tool, because it's a way of warming up to an audience immediately. And in particular, it's not just telling a joke. I mean, I can remember in seminary, sometimes people would tell priests, open with a joke. That's which is fine, and some people do that better than others.
Right.
But oftentimes his jokes would be sometimes at his own expense. So he'd talk about, him wanting to lead souls to Christ, and he'd talk about meeting someone, and he says, "You don't even know where you're going on the road. How can you lead me? How can you lead me to heaven if you don't know where the city hall is?" Or things like that. But they would be jokes at his own expense.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can get someone to, if you are humble enough to joke at your own expense, and you can get them to laugh, they're laughing with you. You've brought them along with you already. You've instantly established a rapport with them, and that's what opens the door for people to listen more intently to what you have to say after that. So humor was always a way, I think, of bringing the audience along with him and establishing very quickly a connection, so he could use that to communicate the deeper truths that he would spend so much time working on.
Monsignor, so often when we're talking about saints, we always look at their suffering in life, right? I mean, it appears most saints have had great suffering. Suffering's a part of all of our lives. What kind of suffering would you attribute, or would Sheen have experienced in his life?
Yeah. In the article, I tried to pull out some things that maybe people don't know as much. I mean, so one of the first sacrifices he had to make, and I think this was a big one for him, is when he was young, he was in college, and he had a scholarship that was like everything he had dreamed of. It was going to be he was going to pay all the expenses for whatever program of study he would want to do. And one of the priests at the college told him to give up that scholarship because, Fulton, you're supposed to be in seminary. So give that up. Give up your will in order to do what you should be doing. And he did that and went to seminary and then ended up actually having more opportunities to study. So God actually rewarded him for that. But that was the first first significant sacrifice of his life. But I think he encountered other sacrifices that sometimes it was a difficult relationship sometimes when he was in New York to work with Cardinal Spellman. He had a difficult time with his being bishop in Rochester. I think he was a sincere man of the council, of the Second Vatican Council, and I think he encountered a lot of resistance. Those were crazy times after the council.
Right.
So at different times in his life, heart surgery toward the end, he suffered a lot there. But there are many different ways in which suffering entered into his life, and some of that, I encourage people to read the book Treasure and Clay, because it does give an opportunity to get a feel for that. And I think you can sense some of that in his description.
He really seemed, I know our bishop always talks about the virtue is the middle ground, right? And as I read your article, I got that sense with him in leadership, and that's a hard place to be sometimes because the people on the right and the people on the left don't like you. It appears that he struggled with that too in his ministry as bishop. One of the things I want to ask before we run out of time here is, you're part of the director of the Fulton Sheen Foundation. Does this have any role in this canonization process? Will you be involved in the beatification process? Anything like that that's going on?
Sure. Yeah. So we're responsible for promoting the cause. The foundation promotes the cause on behalf of the Diocese of Peoria. And we are actively working now for the planning of the beatification. Working with the Holy See, we hope to secure a date. We're waiting for the Vatican to give us that information. So we're dependent upon them. But I'm hoping within the next weeks that we'll actually announce the date and the circumstances of the beatification. And then we'll start announcing all the other activities that we'll be planning around the beatification. So more news to come, and hopefully very soon.
Yeah. Now, is there a museum, right, in Peoria, kind of for Fulton Sheen? Is there things like if people end up going to Peoria, what can they look for?
Yeah. So the body of Sheen is entombed at St. Mary's Cathedral in Peoria, so the diocesan cathedral. And people are welcome to come and visit, and the cathedral's open every day for a certain number of hours. And then in our pastoral center, which is just a block or two away, we have a modest museum. We're actually looking to expand it because, to be honest, we have so many things, so many treasures, so much memorabilia from Sheen that we're looking forward to expanding that museum. But if they come to Peoria, the Fulton Sheen Museum and the cathedral are really the two best places to go to pray, to know Sheen, and to get to know his life by seeing him in the museum.
And so when you get the date, we'll also know where the beatification will occur all at the same time?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. So go to celebratesheen.com. We'll keep information up to date. That's the best place for information about the cause.
Well, Archbishop Sheen is one of my favorites. So thank you so much, Monsignor. Have a great week ahead.
My pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Take care. You too.